In this tutorial today, you're going to learn how to do something called texture mapping, which is applying a texture over top of an image, and it's kind of a neat effect. Now this process is probably the most step-intensive one, so you may need to pause this video often. I'm also attaching a photocopy of a older edition of Photoshop Elements that goes through the same process. And it's step by step. So whichever one works best for you, this will be our last Photoshop assignment of the year before we start into our ISP next week. First thing that we're going to do is we're just going to open an image that we want to apply a texture to. So I'm going to give you some tips here. Make sure this image is one that is easy to use the magic wand tool to cut out. Okay, so I want to use an image of a penguin. I've already experimented with this one, so it works for me. They're fairly clear against the backdrop here, and they're fairly easy to cut out. Now, I see some of you guys are saving the image or you're copying the image from here. This is not, this is not the full resolution picture that you see here. So here, if you want to get the full resolution picture, make sure you select View Image and then save this one. And save it where you want. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to open up that photo. I just saved it on my desktop here. So let's see where it is. Here it is. Okay. Now, the first step that you're going to do is we are going to duplicate this file. So we are going to go File, Duplicate, and we're just going to save it as Copy. And so now you see we have two of these files open, one's a copy. In the copy, we're going to go into Image, Mode, and we're going to change it to Grayscale. And it will ask you if you want to discard the color information. You say OK. Under Filters, still on the same Grayscale one, we're going to select Blur, Gaussian Blur. Okay, so this one I think auto-populates to 1 depending on the resolution of your photo. So if it's a very high resolution photo, we're going to use a higher number like 4 or 5. If it's fairly low, we're going to use about 2. So mine's fairly high, so I'm going to use about 5. I'm going to select OK. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this file. Okay, as something called map. And I don't want to save this as a JPEG file. I want to save this as a Photoshop PSD file. So save the blurred gray copy of your photo as a map.psd somewhere where you can find it. And I've already done this, so I'm going to just replace it. Good. Now what we're going to do is we're going to open the image that we want to use as a texture. And I've already found mine. I want to make these penguins look like stone. This is quite a high resolution one, so I'm going to download it. And I'm going to go ahead and open that up in Photoshop. Okay. Now what I want to do is I want to click and drag this so it's on top of my original image. So I'm going to grab it using the Move tool. Back to my photo bin. I'm going to grab it. I'm going to pull it on top of my original image. So it's on top now. Now I want to select. It's already actually looks like it's already all selected. So with my entire filter all selected, make sure it is. You can just click on it. See, mine has a select all around it. I'm going to go to the filter menu. I want to go to the distort section, displace, OK, and we're going to leave horizontal scale as 10. We're going to leave vertical scale as 10. Under Displacement Map, we're going to select Stretch to Fit and repeat edge pixels. So this is all the default values, and they're all OK for me. Okay, so what this wants us to do now is we're going to add a displacement map. So this will open up a folder will open up after you click OK, and that's asking you to add a displacement map to it, and that's where we open the file that we saved earlier, that map PSD, and we press open. Now, not a lot has really changed. What you'll see is that you can kind of see an outline of the penguins here. It has changed a little bit. So we still have some work to do. Now we're going to just deselect our selection. Okay, it's already deselected. And we're going to go to the eye icon. If you go over to the layers palette, if you go to the eye icon, we're going to hide this stone texture behind there. And we want to basically cut out the background image and cut out anything that we don't want to apply the texture to. I'll show you what that means in just a second. So I'm going to get a fairly decent sized brush, and I'm going to try to select the entire background, and I'm going to go fairly quick at first, and then I'm going to take some time, and I'm going to make sure that my selection is what I want. So you might have to zoom in here, you might have to spend a bit of time. I won't spend too much time here because I just want to show you guys what to do, and then after that you guys will get started. So of course this penguin's fairly well selected. Maybe I want to get in here. It's good. This penguin, it cut him off a little bit, so I'm going to make sure I hold down that Alt key, and I'm going to reselect this penguin as best I can in a really short amount of time. I'm going to get him over here too. Okay, and I want this baby penguin to be excluded from this filter. I just want the mom and dad penguin to look like they're made out of stone. So that's fairly good for a very quick Photoshop job. Okay, so with this selected, so we have that background selected, I'm going to unhide my texture. I'm going to click on this texture layer, and I'm going to press backspace. Okay, so what that's done is it's deleted the layer, the texture layer, all behind what I want to be cut out. Okay, now a couple more steps that we have to do, and we're going to be done. Up here, under normal, we're going to select multiply. And what that does is that begins to add the texture that we're looking for to the penguins. Now, it kind of looks like it's on their skin, and there's some things that we can do to change it up a little bit, okay? So you'll see this opacity icon up here by the layers. We can lower that or raise that to make it more or less pronounced, okay? I'm going to make sure I deselect my selection. Another thing we can do, because the entire penguin now is covered in this kind of filter with this stone, is that you can use the eraser tool to kind of touch up areas where you do not want the effect applied. So if I don't want the effect applied to the head of the penguin, I can erase it from here. And now that's not that visible, so I'll show you maybe what I mean. But maybe I don't want you know, this part of the penguin to have that effect applied to them, so I'm going to erase the effect off here. Now what this is going to be nice for is for things like teeth, if you're doing a person, or things that you don't want the effect applied to. So like this dark feathers here, I don't want them to look like they have a stone overlay. So I'm just going to erase it off here and make it more pronounced on their bellies. Okay, so play around with this, have some fun with it, find a neat texture, apply it to a image again that is easy to cut out, and there you go, you're on your way to becoming a Photoshop expert.